Welcome to the Sutherland Report. Thank you for joining me once again. It's always a privilege to have your company. What is exciting for me today is that I do get to interview a friend of mine and another fellow filmmaker who is doing some incredible, outstanding work. And it's why I want to bring David Heavener on of David Heavener TV, The Last Evangelist. We will go through this with David for he to explain all and what is happening. David, good to see you, my friend, and thank you very much for joining me. And thank you for the work that you are throwing out there, which in an incredible way, fantastic production values and all the rest. And I think I just about recognize some English voice that you've managed to include. So I'm very gratified for that. But David, lovely to see you. And thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for the work you're doing, and thank you for the encouragement you've given me on Last Evangelist, and thanks for offering your voice. You know, people, I've screened this worldwide, and everyone, without delay, runs to me after the screening and says, "We love your TV series, but tell me about the guy that has the English accent. He made the whole episode." But anyway, thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Well, no.
We that's what we do, is we tell stories of what we believe, and what Scripture says. We apply it to film, and we show it to people that normally wouldn't go to church, or hopefully open people's eyes, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely, David. And also, I understand the struggles of trying to make your own films. I understand the struggles of that, and I want to. I'm not. It's not about throwing hyperbole across the Atlantic. It genuinely, the amount of effort that you have put into this and the production values of it, and it's to encourage people to find it, to view it, and to use it as a tool. So before we go into a longer conversation, could you explain where people can find it, where they can find Last Evangelist, etc.?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Go to davidheavener.tv. You can sign up, watch it. It's very inexpensive. It's a cup of Starbucks. And you have over 1,000 shows on the things that Mark and I talk about the Nephilim, alien demon connection, program multiples, satanic ritual abuse, witchcraft, things the church doesn't talk about. You can get those shows also, but it has its own channel. It's got Last Evangelist channel. You can see episode 1, episode 2, behind the scenes. And also I have a Bible study with episode 1 too. And episode 3 is coming out next month, so you get to see that too. davidheavener.tv. And if you guys would like to support, we do crowdfunding. It's lastevangelist.com. You can go there and donate $1 or whatever and get a walk-on role.
It's brilliant, and it is extremely clever. And of course, some of the people that you have in the film, I actually know personally, which on the personal level is fantastic. And then I'm looking at certain scenes saying, you've done that. That's so-and-so's church, for argument's sake. But it is extremely clever. So, David, in a way, I suppose I sort of know the answer to it, but it's important to hear it from your mouth. What was your motivation in saying, I need to get this series off the ground?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. Few people have asked it. My motivation was, I spent so many years in the pulpit as a music minister in the church, and yet people were not talking about or understanding what Jesus was talking about in Matthew 24, the coming persecution. So many things that the prophets talked about. They blew the horn, repent. What's going to come down the pike, what's happening now, even though people think, well, since Trump's in, it's not going to. Well, we'll talk about that. But so my motivation was to get the word out to people that probably wouldn't even go to church. And you know what, Mark, people that have gone to church all their lives have come up to me and said, David, can this really happen? And I go, well, can it? It's happening now, and after COVID, See, Mark, before COVID, it was science fiction. Um, After COVID, it's a documentary. It's like, but now it goes to another level. Episode 2 talks about the transformational Bible, changing the Word of God. You have to get the insertion, mind control. So now people are watching it, going, "Can this really happen?" Well, look what they did when COVID happened. Of course, it can happen. That was
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
sorry, so that motivation then of making something that is educating people and that is accessible in some ways, I'm quite I'm quite shocked, but maybe I should say I'm not surprised when people have said to you, "Can this really happen?" And then it unfolds. Are you still coming across a lot of that phrase cognitive dissonance? Are you still coming across, without being rude to people, not naming names, denial about what is going on?
Hmm. Oh yeah, all the time. Every time a church says to me, well, they don't say this all the time, but they have said, "Dave, we'd love for you to get up and speak, but our congregation would basically get scared to death, and go hide under a rock." So yeah, I'm getting it from the religious community. Where I'm getting embraced, Mark, is from the secular audience. I've won a lot of festivals
Mm,
with episode 1, and they've won secular film festivals. So I'm able to get up, accept the award, thank God as the executive producer,
mm, mm,
and afterwards they do a
mm,
question and answer.
mm,
And all the time, people that aren't Christians, don't go to church, they will ask me these questions. David, I've never seen this aspect of God before. I've never thought about how the government could do this, and how, so I'm getting embraced by a secular audience, that actually, Mark, their eyes are being opened, because no matter who you are, you're getting persecuted. Somebody's persecuting you, and so they can all
mm.
kind of relate to it.
Well, hallelujah for that, and the fact that you are reaching those people, those fields. I mean, we're in the communication business. You have been in the communication business for many, many years in many films, etc. And we are seeing the importance of it, but we also know that communication business, how much it's been under attack. I mean, many, many years ago, when we think of some of the original films were made in Hollywood of Moses, etc., and these incredible biblical stories, then we can go through that history and see how things have changed. And when you say about mind control, I suppose television, but
Mm.
this is absolutely fantastic, and I'm not just saying this for hyperbole across the Atlantic. To me, the rewards are deserved, David, not because that is why you're making it. It's because this is hard work. This is really, really hard work. So I ask people to provide for you, to pray for you in this. So
Thank you.
don't give it away. Don't give it away. But you've got episode 3 coming out. Have you
Yeah.
said that is in a month's time? That's
Yeah.
already in the can?
Yes, it's in the can. We're just finishing it up. We could use a few more dollars just to do the color correction, a few other things,
Mm,
but it doesn't matter. I'm going to do it anyway. Um, so it'll be out May 31st. May
right.
31st. Yeah, yeah. I'm excited about it. Of course, your voice will be in it too. Uh, and But I did want to touch on something you just said, Mark. I think it's important. uh, you know, as time goes on, we're going to find that we're going to be more and more censored. Okay.
Mm, mm,
Even if I may use the right and the left just
yeah.
as a
Mm,
point
yeah.
of reference, because we have to go, otherwise I have to have some identification. Right being the Republicans, left being the Democrats, right being conservative, left being mocked out liberals. It doesn't matter who's in. It doesn't matter, because everyone has an agenda. And if you don't know the Lord, if a government is not on God's side, if it's not God's government, it's the government of the Antichrist, the deep state. So no matter who's in charge of the ship is still headed to hell. Okay, it's the Titanic. So it doesn't matter where you are, what side you're on, whatever. Uh, there's going to be persecution. There's going to be censorship. So what God told me a long time ago, 6 years ago, he said, David, I want you to go and start like a little Netflix minus $17 billion. And because, Mark, my knowledge and distribution for years, I kind of knew how to do that. I could do it on a budget. So I did. I wasn't quite sure why I was doing it. Now I see. Now I see of how they're taking people down, censoring people. And so this is a platform that we're not going to get taken down. It's going to be very difficult from takedown on Roku and Amazon and Apple TV. It's our own private platform, davidheavener.tv. And that's why God told me to put that up, because look, here's the deal. People go, well, now that conservatives are in, we're okay now. You can say whatever you want. Not so fast. Not so. You can say whatever you want, but you're not going to say it about God. See, God's government never coincides with man's government. So if you're on God's government, man's government is never going to like that. Doesn't matter whether you're right, left, blue, red, whatever, it doesn't matter. So I think you get my drift, that it's not going to stop the censorship.
No. Well, I can say from this point of view, from the UK perspective, they are really, really looking at even more of how to censorship and combining that with Europe. And to give a little different perspective is that those people that called themselves conservative laid down legislation, laid the ground rules that this far left of centre government that we have to pick up those rules and begin to push for censorship. And I've tried to explain for a number of years to my American friends that just because someone is a conservative, they're not you've got to look at who they really are and what they stand for. Well, good for you for having this platform and people then being drawn to it. So 31st of May, end of May, the new series, episode 3 comes out. David, what are your plans beyond that? What is your vision beyond that?
My vision is, and God showed me this a long time ago, I'm not going to let it go. One thing I won't do is quit, is for the next 20 years to continue making these episodes. Okay. Maybe all I ever do, because I'll be doing it back to back. And it exposes, every time the enemy makes a move, we come out with an episode that exposes it. It's kind of a counter, you know?
Yeah.
And God showed me Gunsmoke years ago, Matt Dillon. There's a new sheriff in town, a tight cast. Really, Gunsmoke is one of the first adult Westerns that ever came around the block, and it was different. So I think Last Evangelist could be the first adult Christian crime drama. When I say adult Christian movie, it probably is. Most of them are sissy. So that's my vision for it. But we've got to find a way now, Mark, to continue filming these nonstop. Don't let any lag time go behind. And then also the second part of it is distribution, which is kind of my arena also. So God's going to have to perform some miracles we have distribution, but it's very limited, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But we need to somehow get it into a bigger vein, to get it out. That's my prayer anyway.
Well, absolutely, and totally makes sense, because reflecting on the British film industry over here that was basically built by Arthur Rank. Arthur Rank built Pinewood Studios. Arthur Rank got into filmmaking because he made short films or little films to teach his Sunday class. He had a Christian faith. That's where it came from. Now we look at Pinewood now, Netflix are us. And there was a fight between the British film industry, the American film industry, of who was going to own what. And you're absolutely right. Distribution is the key. I'm going to throw something out here for people to think about without being too controversial. Me, controversial? The key is this. I believe the first CEO of Netflix, Marcus Bernays Randolph. Edward Bernays, the great sort of propagandist from America who persuaded the females of America to smoke and also for Americans to go to work on an egg or bacon and have a breakfast. The propagandist, and look at that relationally. These families, David. There's control. There's principalities. This is what you're dealing with. This is why you're making the Last Evangelist and fighting and pushing back against that. Your thoughts on that?
Yes. See, we get lost in this political arena, which is nothing but drama. It's a drama. We're fighting against principalities and powers in high places.
Mm.
It's a spiritual war, but a lot of people go, okay, it's spiritual. I'll just let God take care of it. Doesn't work that way. We're God's soldiers. We're his warriors. We're fighting the battle. But we've got to keep a spiritual mindset to understand it's not about some government someplace and, across the pond or whatever. It's about a unified Antichrist, if you want to call it deep state Illuminati, whatever title. It's a concerted effort by a unified evil that's coming against the people. And number one, God's people. So you're going to see television in the 50s when it came out. It came out because they wanted to capture the women in the homes. They knew that women were at home ironing clothes, men went off to work. They figured, how can we do this? Well, they came up with what they called the soap opera, a 15-minute piece, and it was funded by Palmolive, the soap company, and it had women cheating on men cheating on women, alcoholism, even drug abuse at that time, sexualized videotape stuff. And so it captured women's minds. It started controlling their minds. And even before that, Mark, in the theaters, they would have what they would call government bonds, where they would create a war, then they'd have to get money to pay for it. So they would have these commercials running in theaters, war bonds they were selling. And then people go, well, I always ask people, do you understand how VHS machines got in homes all across the country? Video machines, they didn't just pop up one day. No, they were put in there by the X-rated film industry. So people could watch these X-rated movies in their homes. And once they got enough of those in there, then the Antichrist said, now we can take and start putting movies into the home so people can watch privately. And a lot of them were really dark movies. Now elevate that, which I'm going to what you said. Look at Netflix. Netflix says not only do you have to have a machine, but you don't even need a machine. We're going to pump it right into your TV with no restrictions. There's no one to see over it. There's no guidelines, no nothing. And Mark, let me tell you something. I've been watching Netflix and some of these other flicks the past couple of weeks. I haven't watched it in a long time. Man, it is so dark. It is so evil that it's very disturbing. Very disturbing.
Well, I have to say on a personal level that I really do take a lot of encouragement through what you're doing here. I suppose within the sort of framework of making films and media and all the rest, at times it only seems a small number of us that have the beliefs that we do, that want to work and create stuff. And I have to say to you, I'm not saying it because, bless you, you use my voice, but episode 2, when access to that going, I want to watch this. And it's like, it's brilliant because you've said it when you use that term that sometimes previous people that have made stuff that call them, this is a Christian film, and you describe that as sissy, and good for you. We want high production values. We want good, solid script. We want a good story with characters that people can relate to. But you are speaking the truth within that. That's why I'm really, honestly blown away by that, because I know how difficult this is. So when you are reaching, as you said, you're reaching the non-Christian audience, what is the reaction from that Christian filmmaking world? Are they saying, I mean, you're winning awards, so that's, I'm not saying it's all about that. So what is their reaction to you, David? Do you think you're making them think about what they're making themselves?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's two groups of people. There's the church people, and then there's Christian filmmakers that make movies, which
Yes.
is a different crowd. They all love Last Evangelist. They're very encouraging, at least the ones I've met, because we're all a filmmaking community.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do think it's getting them to rethink it. I have had some filmmakers come to me and go, David, you took a risk on doing that. I said, yeah. They go, well, I've got an idea I'd like to do too. And I said, hey, if it connects with the Bible, riskier is better, man. You got to get out there and do stuff for God. So I think it is kind of getting people a little geared up, a little motivated to make stuff that's out of the box.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
and then they ask me a lot because I'm teaching. When I go to these festivals, they find out how many movies I make, and they'll ask me to get up and speak and maybe teach a class. And so I'll tell them about funding. Where do you get your money? Well, you can get it from an investor, but you're going to owe an investor. You got to dance to the music. I don't do that. I operate through a nonprofit. Therefore, I operate through donations. Like I said, I have a crowdfunding site, lastevangelist.com. Offer people, they can be a walk-on in the movie. They can be, associate producer. They can get a special thanks. So that's how I'm raising what little small money I'm getting.
mm,
And I
mm,
tell these filmmakers that they're very encouraged with it because they wanted to do it, but they never tried it. So I've had some of them now go out since they've met me and they've started their sites, their crowdfunding sites. And so I'm excited about this, about a new way of financing.
mm. Absolutely, as I can relate to that, is looking at what we've got in our hand and then moving from that point. When you say about making things a bit out of the box and maybe using that word edgy, what do you think what are you saying by that? What are they saying by that?
Well, there's two things. One is God will lay something on their heart. I'm using them as
Mm,
some,
mm,
person out there. But they don't want to entertain it because it doesn't look and smell and taste like some of the other films that have been out there, projects.
mm,
And so they discount it. And so they fall back on something that seems a little more comfortable, a little more, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's films out there about people losing legs and arms, and I'm not talking about that. That's pretty generic and pretty. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's a given. Okay, somebody lost
mm,
their legs, and now it's heartbreaking and all that, and it's great that you're doing that. But what about the person that got locked up? The preacher got locked up because he wouldn't close his church.
mm,
The
mm,
government comes against somebody because
mm.
they didn't do what the government said to do. What about your church down the street that closed its doors to worshiping God, but opened it up as a jab junction? What
Yeah.
about doing a show on them? What about a documentary? Why don't you interview the
Mm,
pastor and ask him why'd you do this? What was your
mm,
thought?
mm,
Well, no, they don't want to do that. That's a little bit risky, right?
mm.
But they're starting to open their eyes a little bit, I think.
No, but this is excellent because it is about wanting to tell, as you said, good stories that are relevant, they're getting people thinking, so they're drawn in. And of course, you've got episode 1, episode 2, episode 3 coming out, and you are building that platform and that appetite for it. David, we think of that, then what about, Disney producing Snow White? And look at that reception. I want to know I've got my opinion. I'm with you. I want to know what your opinion of that without getting yourself into trouble.
First of all, if that little girl is my daughter, I'd take her behind the woodshed and I'd spank her rear end. I'm from the South, man, and you know, I mean, what a brat! What a
Yes.
brat!
Yeah.
If I have to look at one more of her goofy expressions, I think I'm just gonna, maybe I'll write a horror film and pitch it to her. But
Mm,
well, here it is. This is it. This is a formula meant to fail. Disney, I think they were brain dead when they put it together. because what you've got is you got a classic. Okay, you got a classic, and people, when they go see these remakes, they're already skeptical. But because you have a classic and it's a children's classic, you're going to have a lot of forgiveness. But what did they do? They threw a woke young
mm,
girl
mm,
in there that was anti everything that would be conservative or
mm,
classic. She didn't even
yeah.
like original. She put that down and tried to preach her own agenda into it. That's number one. Number two is then they went in and they tried to doctor up the what do you call it, the little people of America.
The dwarfs, yeah, the
Yeah,
dwarfs.
they tried to. They did everything that you could do wrong to sabotage a, what was it, a $200 million
It's just crazy,
production? Just
crazy.
insane. But I hope they learned a lesson. I hope she learned a lesson. I hope she doesn't work again until she learns her lesson.
Mm.
That's what I have to say about Snow White.
I mean, does she write this? Does she actually write the production? I mean, who write this? Who in their right mind is thinking, oh, we're going to make a load of money out of this if we go on about these issues?
Well, I think that's a really good point. I think Disney just got so, you know, cocky and said,
Mm,
we can't lose with Snow White. I don't care.
mm,
I don't care what you do. You can't lose. It's Snow White, right? They didn't think the Titanic could never sink, right? But it sunk.
mm,
So they get these writers, and I don't know who they are. I don't know who they are. I don't know where they got them, whatever. But obviously it was a woke message. But that wasn't what sunk the ship, Mark, in my opinion.
mm,
If you would have had a conservative gal in there that would just been an actress and just
yeah.
did what she was supposed to do, act, right?
Mm,
I don't think it would have gone south as much. I don't think it would have gotten rave reviews, but I don't think it would have sunk like the Titanic so quickly. But it took someone like her to take the writing that existed and turn it into even more of probably what the writers would have said if they had the guts to say it.
mm,
It
mm.
was the beginning of it as the writers, but I don't think they would have carried the torch all the way through. She did. And so I think that's what happened. God will forbid us to ever have any more movies like that. Um, you know, I think they learned a lesson, and I'm super happy that the people. I don't know what about across the pond how they reacted, but the people over here, I'm super happy. They said, "No, we don't want this. We're going to boycott it. We don't like it. It's stupid." I'm glad.
I don't think they even had a premiere in London with that kind of big budget spend
Right.
film. That was cancelled. I mean, there has been. It's not about personalising it, but it's the said actress has not been able to close her mouth on occasions that she's needed to, in fact, do. And you've described this historic film, and then they've decided to take all the elements out of it. But I mean,
Mhm,
the history of Disney in many ways is, and the nefarious of that is another discussion in itself on what it
mhm.
represents, etc., etc. But
Well, a lot
so
of uh,
sorry, go
yeah,
on.
no, I was just going to say a lot of people don't really understand that a lot of these stories came from Europe. They originated across the pond, which is where you are. A
Mm,
lot of people think, well, some American writer woke up one morning and wrote these stories. A lot of these fairy tales, no, America wasn't
mm,
around when some of these things were written, and so I think it's a slap in the face to the culture of because look, you guys, when I say you guys, I'm talking about anything other than America and probably
mm,
Australia.
mm,
You all had the beginnings. You all were the foundation. You guys were the beginning of a lot of these stories. Film came from that area of the world. People don't understand that. It didn't come out of Hollywood. It never did not come out of Hollywood. Um, so it's a slap in the face to you guys, to your culture, and I think to your intelligence, level of intelligence too. You know.
Well, the other thing is what is also fascinating, something is the culture of then Hollywood, the people that are involved in Hollywood and a big Jewish community and all the rest, and create it, as we say, refer to, the Cecil D. DeMille and all the kind of films that he was creating, and going, I'm just going to quote what's in the Bible, is it's incredible, and people need to look at that and remember some of the history. I wonder whether, in many ways, it reflects on the fact that we should have been praying more for that, because we look at the cultural influence, David, praying for those people that are involved in it. What are your thoughts?
Well, the history of Hollywood, just real quick, for those that may not know, is it was in New York at the turn of the century, even after the turn of the century. And Thomas Edison had the kind of the copyright, the trademark on these cameras. So they
Mm,
moved out west where the weather was better, they could film more, land was cheap, so they wouldn't have to pay these royalties. And Hollywood, it was nothing but a subdivision. It was called Hollywood Land, and the land fell off the sign, and people think, oh, that. No, the point is it was Jews that moved out
mm,
there from New York,
mm, mm.
DeMille, Warner, and they started making these movies. Well, for a long time, it was God was respected. It was Judeo, right? And
Mm,
then the
mm,
Christian came. It was Judeo-Christian. So they
mm,
made Ben-Hur. They made uh, you know the Ten Commandments. They
mm,
made
mm.
movies that respected God. And I think if you'll agree with me, you'll watch these movies and they pretty much stay true to
Yes.
scripture, you
Yeah.
know, the
Yeah.
Ten Commandments and so forth, as opposed to the stupid stuff they're making now with Noah, some of these remakes is just totally ridiculous. But so my point is this, my point is we lost the Judeo-Christian um, thread that ran through Hollywood. And because of the baby boomers dropped the ball, they started allowing and watching all this garbage that the liberals were bringing into it. And they looked around one day and they found out they were in a liberal prison, right? And so this is kind of where we are now.
Well, that's why it's fascinating to hear you talk about the origins of the soap opera. Like when you said sponsored by Palmolive. I mean, I've been in the room when I've heard a few years ago when we are in California once at a conference, and there you are explaining the history of Hollywood, etc. It was an absolutely fascinating in how you then go through that. And I think, as a dear friend of mine explained once, I think Warner Brothers were they were the Wazowski brothers. That was their name. Then they changed that. He also, my dear friend Jonathan Stewart Brown, and he goes on about the fact that um, Christians didn't want to get involved in the film industry, and they
Right.
started to boycott it. And then the people in Hollywood at that time turn around and say, well, send us your Christian writers, your actors, and people to be crew members. And the comment was from Christendom in the area, we'd rather hell freeze over. I think there's some interesting literature along these lines in the archives of Warner Brothers. And you and I are not defending at all some of the stuff that is churned out, and especially of late. David, take it a slightly different direction. You've alluded to this. What are your thoughts on the state of America at the moment? There's just been the presidential election. Um, what are your thoughts as you are where you're based and at times traveling around and speaking to people?
Yeah. Well, okay, yeah, I want to answer that. Let me just tag on to what you just said. It take me 1 second. Back when they started making movies in Hollywood,
Mm,
there were signs hung out in front of restaurants, hotels. It said, no blacks, no Negroes, uh, no Jews, and no movie makers.
wow.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Um, And the reason I know this is because I was fortunate enough when I got into the business to catch a lot of the falling stars as they were coming down, meaning they were Academy Award winners. They were Tony Curtis. I starred, wrote, directed a film for HBO with him, who, by the way, was Jewish. That wasn't his original name. Martin Landau, Ernest Borgnine. I could
Incredible people.
go on and on, right? And a lot of them told me the stories. They were around during the days of McCarthy and being blacklisted and all that. They were around during the days of having friend actors who would tell them and show them pictures of restaurants that had no Negroes, no Jews, and no movie makers. I saw it and talked to the people in person. So anyway, now getting back to America, I'm glad Trump is in office. I am, simply because what would the alternative be? Okay. Having said that, I have always been a fan of Trump in the way that he wrote The Art of the Deal. Okay. He's a great negotiator. But when he ran the first time, people would ask me, I said, you're dealing with a guy who is the star of a reality show. He's a reality show. I mean, much more than that, but you have to understand, Mr. Trump, President Trump, that's part of who he is, and which is actually working, with these tariffs and some of the radical stuff he does. It takes somebody like that. But you understand, this is where he comes from. And what is reality programming? Reality programming is when you're watching people do something bigger than life, something that you can't believe they're doing, right? And that's what he is doing. Now, with respect, and I want to stay respectful, I do like him. I like the family unit he has. Is he a Christian? I don't know. That's not the issue for me right now. But I have a bigger issue, is all these religious preachers that came and laid hands on him in his first term. A lot of them were NAR pastors. A lot of them shouldn't. I told my wife, I said, they're laying hands on him. This man's going to get in trouble. So I'm kind of on the other side of the fence. I don't want all these religious figures getting him, because a lot of them aren't really, of God. So I believe that we have been shown a little grace. Life support system's been kicked back on. But do I believe that anything has changed according to Scripture? Not at all. Because you have man's government and you have God's government. They will never, ever come together. It is impossible. It's oil and water. Scripture talks about it. So we have to make a decision, like I talk about in episode 2. We can't serve two masters. We'll hate one, love the other. It may be the last true decision you ever make. And so this is why we have to start making decisions. Which side are we going to be on?
Absolutely. David, I'm just going to put the poster up again, just to remind people, because it's a good picture of you. And then we'll go to, again, just to remind ourselves where people could find this incredible work, and which is ongoing. So, David, if you could remind us, please.
Yeah, go to davidheavener.tv. I have my own channel on there, Last Evangelist channel, and you have over 1,000 other videos on different things we've been talking about, the Nephilim and alien demon and SRA and stuff. You can go there. If you want to fund it, help us fund it, go to lastevangelist.com. You can be part of the crowdfunding. You can get a walk-on role and, maybe even a associate producer credit, or just a thank you. But that's how we're doing it. We're doing it outside the system, Mark, and thank you for that. But I want to say one more thing about what I was talking about. When I talk about the government, I don't want you to think I'm talking about Trump or any other. I'm talking about the Antichrist government. I'm talking about the one world government, the deep state. And there is a deep state.
Yes.
Oh yeah, you better believe it. And this is what I'm talking about. That government. You side with that government, and you're going to lose it. You're going to lose it. They're going to take your freedom, going to take your health, going to take everything you have. By promising you all this, they're going to take it away. And how they're going to do that is through I talk about this in episode 2, through the insertion, through the mark of the beast. It's an answer to a problem. Well, the problem here was the virus, but there's going to be other events, going to be financial problems, going to be more health problems, going to be, you name it, problems. They're going to have the answer if you'll just take what it is they want you to take. God says, no, you take me and turn away.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you for what you're doing. And as I say, we've made it very clear where people can find your work, which is going to be ongoing, which we need to be praying for and supporting. David, I just want to thank you for your time. It's been much appreciated. We've finally been able to sit down, have this conversation, because I know that you've been busy. Is there anything I've left out before I play us out?
No, I think you pretty much covered everything. Thank you for your encouragement. And Mark, in case I run this on my platform, do you want to tell people how they can get in touch with you?
Well, that is really, really kind. It's a website that I need to update, but marksutherland.org. You can find me there. I'm on X, on the Sutherland Report. You could find me there, and also the Sutherland Report channel, and which is on YouTube. Find that, share that, and of course, the wonderful little short film Between Lambs and Lions that YouTube have censored because it never goes beyond 20,000. Then there's another little film, The Irish Echo. Watch this space, because we need to move forward with all that other creativity. But David, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And we got to support each other. I want everybody out there, support you, support me, if you will. And I just want real quick, this is where Last Evangelist spawned from, is this book, End Times Investigation Hollywood. That's other new book. And then they can also get DVDs on, so they can just go to davidheavener.tv/order, or call 844-806-0006.
Brilliant. This is the way that we fund our work. We have to. This is why it's important. And as I say, well done on your rewards, which are well deserved, but also the fact of the audience that you are reaching. That is extremely, extremely exciting. And the sad thing is, it seems that there are more people who are awake to what's going on outside the church than actually inside the church.
Yep.
And that is really sad all over the world, I think. David, stay with me. I'm going to play us out, and then on the other side, I'll say goodbye. But everybody, thank you for joining us and enjoying a great conversation with David Heavener of David Heavener TV. And I look forward to joining you again. Please like, subscribe, support David, find out what I'm up to, and it's much appreciated. Okay, I'm going to play us out. David, thank you. Thank you so much. Cheers.